5 goals conceded in Istanbul on a Champions League night to Galatasaray. Not Bayern, not Real Madrid, Galatasaray. And Juventus, the most decorated club in Italian football history, sat there in the second half with 10 men, no answers, and a mountain so steep they'd need oxygen to climb it. 5-2. First time in Champions League history they've ever conceded 5 in a single game. Let that sink in for a second. Because this isn't just a bad result, this is the symptom of something that's been rotting at this club for years. So today, we're going to talk about how Juventus went from 9 consecutive Serie A titles and 2 Champions League finals to whatever the hell this is. Let's start in the good days because you need to understand the height of the peak to appreciate just how steep the fall has been. When Antonio Conte took over in 2011, Juventus had just finished 7th in Serie A. 7th! He walked in, installed a 3-5-2 system and rebuilt the club around a set of players nobody else seemed to want. Andrea Pirlo arrived on a free from AC Milan. Paul Pogba came through for nothing from Manchester United's youth academy. Arturo Vidal was signed for peanuts. And behind them all, Giorgio Chiellini, Leonardo Bonucci and Andrea Barzagli formed arguably the greatest defensive unit the modern Italian game has ever seen. They went unbeaten in the 2011-12 title-winning campaign. Then champions again and again in 2013/14 with a record-breaking 102 points. And on and on and on, 9 consecutive Scudetti stretching all the way to 2020, a run that felt like it would never end. By the time Massimiliano Allegri had pushed them to back-to-back Champions League finals in 2015 and 2017, the club had convinced itself it was just one signing away from truly ruling Europe, and that's when they brought in Cristiano Ronaldo. The Ronaldo signing felt at the time like the moment everything clicked into place. 100 million euros to Real Madrid, roughly 31 million euros net per year in wages, working out to approximately 57 million euros gross annually for one single player. Their shirt sponsorship value jumped from 40 million euros to 101 million euros overnight. Their social media following doubled. Globally, Juventus became a different sized club in the space of one press conference. But here's what actually happened on the pitch. Ajax knocked them out of the Champions League, then Lyon, then Porto. And while the European dream was crumbling, the wage structure Ronaldo's deal created quietly warped the entire squad, spending north of 86 million euros per year on one player, roughly 22% of total club revenues, left nothing to strengthen around him. The BBC defence, Barzagli, Bonucci, Chiellini, was ageing fast with no succession plan. Barzagli retired in 2019, Chiellini left for LA Galaxy in 2022. The midfield replacements were, to put it plainly, not good enough. Aaron Ramsey, Adrien Rabiot, Arthur Melo, and the Arthur Pjanic swap with Barcelona, where both clubs inflated player values to manufacture accounting profits, became one of the most scrutinised transfers in Italian football history. When Ronaldo left for just 15 million euros, a player they'd paid over 100 million euros for, Juventus were left holding a bloated wage structure, a squad built around one man, and no clear identity going forward. Which brings us to the moment that changed absolutely everything. In November 2022, the entire board of directors resigned. President Andrea Agnelli, Vice President Pavel Nedved, the whole lot gone overnight. Italian prosecutors had been investigating what they called plusvalenze, the artificial inflation of player transfer values to manufacture profits on club accounts. The Italian Football Federation handed Juventus a 15-point deduction and UEFA banned them from European competition entirely for 2023-24, issuing a €20 million fine on top. Cristiano Ronaldo then won an arbitration case over unpaid pandemic wages, costing Juventus a further €9.8 million. The reputational damage was permanent. Juventus went from a club that elite players chose to a club with sanctions hanging over it, a new board nobody fully trusted, and a financial structure built on numbers that turned out to be fiction. When you can no longer guarantee Champions League football and everything in your accounts is under a magnifying glass, top talent stops coming. And they're not clear of it yet. Juventus are currently under a new UEFA investigation for potential financial fair play breaches between 2022 and 2025, with a verdict expected this year. What followed was a managerial carousel that reveals everything about how rudderless this club has become. Sarri won the 2020 title and was sacked anyway. Andrea Pirlo, an icon with essentially no top-level managerial experience, was handed the reins for a season that won a Coppa Italia but was tactically all over the place. Allegri returned, brought defensive pragmatism that bored the fan base rigid, and was dismissed in 2024. Then Thiago Motta arrived with enormous promise after his work at Bologna and immediately fell apart. Motta used 39 different formations across 42 games. He froze out Dusan Vlahovic, who only started one of the final 9 league matches despite being the club's top scorer. His relationship with the dressing room deteriorated to the point that when he was finally sacked in March 2025, following a 4-0 home destruction by Atalanta and a 3-0 defeat at Fiorentina, his own players' agents were publicly celebrating. That's how bad it got. And these sackings come at a price. Juventus are now liable for nearly €30 million in unpaid contract compensation to Motta and his successor Tudor combined. Tudor himself steadied things enough to secure 4th place last season, signed a contract through 2027, and then went 8 games without a win in the new campaign, including 4 matches without a single goal. He was sacked in October. That made 3 managers fired in under 18 months. Luciano Spalletti, the man who delivered Napoli's first Scudetto in 33 years, is now in the dugout. Progress under him is real, but over 10 points off leaders Inter Milan with no title race to speak of tells its own story. And while Juventus have been spinning their wheels through this managerial chaos, the rest of Serie A has moved. Antonio Conte's Napoli are ruthlessly organised. Inter under Simone Inzaghi and now Chivu have built a genuine machine. Structured, coherent, a clear identity stretching back years. AC Milan have rebuilt intelligently through younger players with resale value. All 3 clubs know exactly what they are. Juventus, right now, looks stuck in no man's land, not quite committing to a youth rebuild, not quite able to attract the elite names that would make them contenders again. That's why targets are going elsewhere. When Juventus were dominant, they signed Pirlo and Pogba on Freeze and Vidal for a fraction of his value because winning in Turin was the destination. Now there's no clear project, no recent European pedigree, financial restrictions from ongoing UEFA scrutiny, and a wage cap that limits what they can genuinely offer. The squad reflects it. Rotational level players filling key roles, too much dependence on inconsistent youngsters, and no commanding midfield presence capable of controlling a knockout game in Europe. Which brings us back to Istanbul. Koopmeiners scored twice in the first half. Juventus were actually ahead at the break. 2-1, everything still to play for. Then the second half began. Juan Cabal was sent off just 21 minutes after coming on, and a side built on shaky defensive foundations simply caved. Noah Lang's second goal came from Juventus catastrophically trying to play out from the back and gifting Galatasaray an empty net. A team that conceded 10 goals across 8 Champions League phase matches, ranking 16th in the competition for expected goals against, had been exposed at the worst possible moment. That image, Juventus collapsing under pressure against a team they would have smashed a few years ago, is the sharpest possible summary of where this club stands. They have until the second leg at the Allianz Stadium to somehow overturn a 3-goal deficit. History says it's possible. Current form says otherwise, and that sentence right there captures Juventus in 2026 better than anything else. A club leaning on its history because the present, after years of financial scandal, managerial chaos and structural collapse, hasn't given them very much else to hold on to. Do you think Juventus will get back to their dominant days again? Let us know in the comments. Remember to leave a like on the video if you enjoyed it and subscribe to the channel. Also, be sure to turn on post notifications so that you never miss out on any new videos. Catch you in the next one. Bye.